Alright, in this video I'm going to be doing a battery replacement on an iPhone SE. Here's the phone. So powering it down. My battery came with tools, as most of these do, even though they're usually worthless. I have my own set of tools, but we may use the ones that came with the battery kit, if necessary. Right off the bat, I don't see a SIM card eject tool, though maybe one of the prongs of this would work. Let's try. Well, how about that? Cool. It's out. Okay, looks like the device is off. So we'll go ahead and start by taking off the screws. It's magnetic, that's nice. Okay, now we gotta get the screen off. The suction cup's usually quite helpful. Almost. I'm going to use my own suction cup from a toolkit I got earlier. This is my Scandi-Tech toolkit. One of the best toolkits I've ever used. So you can see it's a beefier. You can probably get it with the included one, but there we go. That wasn't so hard. So once I have it cracked, I'll use their pick and go around the top side while continuing to apply pressure. This is the nerve-wracking part of replacing a battery in any one of these devices for me. It's really easy to break the screen trying to get it to pop open. So I try to apply some pull on the suction cup like this while I try to pry around just to reduce the stress. Maybe in this case we can release one side, because it looks like this side of the the screen's already up, but you can see how it's flexing the glass, so we don't want to flex it too much and break it. So while I continue to pull lightly, I'll try prying inside the screen. There we go. Hopefully that'll help some. Still coming out somewhat crooked. There we go. There we go. Alright, good. So it looks like that's released. Pop it open. There's a tiny connector in there. We'll use this spudger. Pop this cover off. So this came off. And then, well, the connector's off too, so we're all set there. So a lot of the time, looks like this battery's been replaced before. As you can see, that's not the factory Apple battery. A lot of guides I've seen suggest removing all of these connectors up here, and I've done that in the past. But I think for a battery replacement, that's not necessary. So I'm just going to undo these screws. That's the battery connector that I'm undoing right now. There's one. There's the second screw. The connector. Oh. Can see the battery connector here. It's popped off. So I'm going to bet that since this battery has been replaced before, it's probably, the glue is probably not very tight. If there is any. Yep, it's loose. There you go, and it's out. So these are the sticky strips. There should be a black strap here. You can pull them, and as you pull them, they release, or at least that's how it's supposed to work in theory. But clearly, in this case, they've been replaced before. So here's the replacement battery I have. Okay, so I will probably try plugging this in first, and might need to bend the connector into shape to make sure it doesn't get bound up when the battery is in. Let's see. So I'm just going to try to line it up and push it down with my thumb. That's popped in. Yeah, we might want to. So here's me bending the connector a little, so you can see there we put a bit of an angle there. I'll try to pop it in again. This part's pretty delicate, so hopefully I won't damage anything doing it this way. Shouldn't, but you never know. I think I'm having difficulty lining it up properly. There we go. Popped it in. Okay, so since I've had a bad replacement battery before I put the bracket back on, I just want to make sure that this battery will power up. Oh, it does. Sweet. Okay, so we'll wait to see if the battery powers up properly and see how much percentage charge it has, and then I will turn it back off and complete the repair. Touch ID doesn't work, of course, but the screen seems to be working fine, so let's go look at the battery. Battery health. That's interesting that it's not able to give me something here yet. Well, for the purposes of this guide, why don't I go ahead and power down the device and finish the install? And I can look at this on my own time to make sure that this battery is a good one. But for the purposes of this instructional video, that shouldn't really matter. So I'll go ahead and turn the phone back off. This poor phone has been through so much. What a lovely, lovely phone, iPhone SE. I believe I've replaced the battery in this thing twice. It's now a little over 3 years old. And I must have replaced the screen at least once, though maybe twice there as well. And I've got a cheap protector on it at the moment. You can see some of the bubbles. Anyway, so for this part, the Touch ID connector needs to be plugged back in. So I like to twist the screen a little bit to the side like this to get the connector to line up. But for this part, I'm probably going to need to use the spludger because it's really hard to get a finger in there. Actually, I almost forgot. We need to put the bracket back on for the battery connector. I've done this so many times and yet still easy to overlook this stuff. And off the screen I have the screws in the proper places they would go in, laid out. Let's see. A more magnetic screwdriver would be nice. My kit has it, but trying to make this video for people who are just buying the battery replacement kit. I was lucky enough to be able to drop that screw into place. And these being as tiny as they are, you don't need to crank down on them, the little screws, so much. Oh no. Okay, I'm just going to turn the phone upside down to grab the screw. Alright, I admit this is getting kind of old. One more time. In case you can't tell what's going on in the video, I'm dropping the little screw over and over and having to turn the phone upside down to get the screw out. I really don't want to have to use my own tools, but I might have to resort to that. There we go. How annoying. Well, that bracket should keep the battery connector in place. So now we're back to the Touch ID strip. I think I got it. So the last thing I need to do is put the put this bracket back on and we are all set. So this has 2 tabs at the top and 1 at the bottom. Well, 1 straight bracket at the top and a little tab on the bottom. This part's very tedious, despite the fact that I've done this a number of times at this point. It's still perhaps the worst part of this whole job. And my phone was actually missing this bracket for a long time. but I figured this time when I have it open, I'll put it in properly, if I can, of course. I think that got it. And at the top side, my home button had been rattling a bit. So I'm going to see if that must be from a screen replacement. So I'm going to see if I can tighten that tiny little screw there while it's apart. But if not, not a big deal. That seems pretty tight. There's just a little bit of play on this part. Anyway, that appears to be good. So we'll pop the display back in. I like to go in at an angle like this at the top, push it a little bit, and then go ahead and close the display down on it, trying to give it even pressure as you try to pop it closed. This is always the part that is most stressful for me because the glass can break, but that looks like it fit in pretty good. So we'll go ahead and power up the device. And I just noticed the other day that if you have a white iPhone, the background is white with the Apple logo black. Such neat attention to detail. Let's go ahead and pop in the SIM card. I'm going to assume that this repair went okay, so I will go ahead and put in the case that I have, or the bumper rather. And as minimal as this case is, or the bumper, the phone has been through so much and hasn't broken yet, which is kind of nice. It's a tough little guy. Okay, let's try to look at the, well, let's see if Touch ID works. It does, that's nice. And then we'll look into the battery percentage. See if that's available yet. Well, it's not pulling up something here. Nonetheless, that concludes the battery repair. Wow, I just realized I did not put in the last two screws. That's quite an oversight. You wouldn't want the screen popping back out, would you? It probably wouldn't, but tiny little screws. Make sure you make full contact. Make sure the screwdriver's tip is fully engaged with the screw and you start pushing it in. I'm applying torque directly on it. And there we go. Okay, well, that concludes the repair. Hopefully that was helpful. Wanted to provide a little short update on this. It looks like the battery capacity, as you can see, is at 100% with the replacement battery, so I think we are all set.